Well, this particular trend goes contrary to the wisdom being espoused by people like Thunberg and AOC, and the apocalyptic sect within the environmentalist movement. There are a lot of smart environmentalists who are making very reasonable points, but the apocalypsts within the environmentalist movement are saying that we are going to lose millions of people to climate change. The last trend shows the number of people who die as a result of natural disasters. These are not things that humanity has any control over. We are talking about earthquakes and tsunamis. And what we have seen, and I kid you not, and I urge people to go to Trend 10, is that the number of fatalities due to environmental disasters has declined by 99% over the last 100 years.
Trend 9, I think people will be able to believe this is real. The long peace, that we're actually, the wars of the last 100 years are winding down in reality.
Yes, right now it's actually quite strange to talk about it now, because we do actually right now have a conflict between two countries, and that's Azerbaijan and Armenia. But what's so interesting about that conflict is that the two countries didn't declare war on each other. And in fact, I think that the last time that a country declared war on another was the Korean War between the United States and North Korea. And in fact, international conflicts, which is to say two countries that declare war on each other and then send armies across borders to slaughter each other's citizens, that has pretty much disappeared from the world. Mm-hmm. What we do have, we've had an uptick in recent years in civil wars. So pretty much all the conflicts that are happening in the world today are civil wars. They're no longer international conflicts, they are civil wars. And there has definitely been an uptick in civil wars, but nowhere close to the number of civil wars that were taking place in the 1970s and the 80s. So even though, yes, we are not at a historically low level of conflict, we are certainly at a much lower level of conflict than we were in the 70s and the 80s. And that's why you need the long-term data, because just when you think that things are being bad and that we've lived through some, 5 years of negative news, look what was happening in the world in the 70s and 80s, compare it, and you'll be happy.
Yeah, and that brings us to trend number 10, which is that we are living in a safer world than we have in a very, very long time.
Yes, well, this particular trend goes contrary to the wisdom being espoused by people like Thunberg and AOC, and the apocalyptic sect within the environmentalist movement. There are a lot of smart environmentalists who are making very reasonable points, but the apocalypsts within the environmentalist movement are saying that we are going to lose millions of people to climate change. The last trend shows the number of people who die as a result of natural disasters. These are not things that humanity has any control over. We are talking about earthquakes and tsunamis. And what we have seen, and I kid you not, and I urge people to go to Trend 10, is that the number of fatalities due to environmental disasters has declined by 99% over the last 100 years. Why would that be? One reason is that as we grow richer, we are able to build more sturdy dwellings. So as architecture becomes more resistant to earthquakes, flooding, and so forth, obviously fewer people die. Another thing that's improved is science. We have satellites which are able to track the formation of a storm in the Caribbean. We can project its trajectory along the coast of the United States. We can predict its landfall within, a few dozens of miles. And all of that means is that we gain time to prepare for storms and hurricanes and tsunamis. Well, I'll get to tsunamis in a second. And therefore, fewer people die. Even when it comes to tsunamis, what do we have now? We are able to monitor the ocean floor for earthquakes, which then send information via sensors to the mainland of Japan, saying, for example, saying that 200 kilometers to the east of, I don't know, Tokyo, there has
Let's
been
go
an
with
earthquake.
Tokyo.
Yeah, and you can expect a tsunami in 36 minutes. And that means that a lot of people can move to higher ground or can prepare or whatever.
Yeah. All right, so those were the top 10 that you guys focus on in the book. Now I'm going to really challenge you as an author because I am going to randomly flip to 3 more. We will finish with 3 more of the 78. And let's see if you know what you're really talking about here. So here we go. All right. Trend 52, rising natural gas reserves. We've actually got extra gas? I know we've got a lot of windbags out there, but we've got extra gas?
That's right. So before I go there, actually, let me say that I don't actually know if Tokyo is on the seacoast or not, but never mind. We are going to get, I'm going to get a lot of hate mail for that.
Yeah.
But when it comes to natural gas, what happened was extraordinary. And that is that in the last 10 to 15 years, last 10 years, shale fracking has become much more efficient than people ever assumed. And so a lot of natural gas that was trapped in rocks and you couldn't get to it, we can now get to because of superior technology that people decades ago didn't have. And so the known reserves of natural gas are now at a record level. So in spite of the fact that we've been using natural gas for decades, we now know of more reserves than ever before. That has the positive effect, of course, of driving down the price of natural gas. When you have natural gas that is very cheap, you can then use it instead of coal, generating electricity. When you use it instead of coal, generating electricity, you are emitting fewer CO2 emissions into the atmosphere. So that is shale. That is shale fracking, and we are very lucky that in the United States we are the center for some of the most innovative minds, because this is very much an American success story.
There you go. All right, I'm randomly selecting here. Here we go. 41, this will be an interesting one. Nuclear arsenals are actually going down.
Yes. So at the height of the Cold War in the mid-1980s, the United States and the Soviet Union had something on the order of 20,000 nuclear warheads each aimed at one another. If those exploded at the same time, it would be over for civilization. The planet would have been uninhabitable. The end. What has happened since then is that I believe we are down to about 3,000 nuclear warheads per Soviet Union, per Russia, and per United States. So we have decreased the number of warheads dramatically. Now, unfortunately, in recent years, there has been some backsliding on these international treaties which are regulating how many nuclear weapons a country can possess. And it's possible that in the future, the number of nuclear weapons possessed by China, India, United States, Russia, and so forth will start climbing. And we should be on top of this. It is a serious problem. It is a serious problem because the knowledge that we have in terms of producing nuclear weapons that cannot be unlearned. Mm-hmm. You cannot put it in a on a shelf somewhere and hope that people will forget about it. I think that what we should be aiming for is having the scientific community tell us what would be the minimal number of warheads that could go off on Earth whilst at the same time preserving civilization, some semblance of civilization, preserving humanity, and then distribute that number of warheads or access to those numbers of warheads amongst nuclear powers. So I think we should be going in the opposite direction. We should try to get nukes as low as possible and then have some sort of a proportional distribution amongst great powers.
That would be a hell of a meeting, trying to get proportional distribution.
Well, We've done that before. We've done that before. In the 1920s, the United States presided over the naval disarmament between the United States, France, Britain, and Japan, where there was a key according to which naval warships, juggernauts, not juggernauts, dreadnoughts, were distributed amongst different great powers. And I think it was something like 10, 10, 7, 7, 4, 4, depending on the power of the relative power of that great power. But my point is, we have done this before with what was then the equivalent of a nuclear weapon, which was the dreadnought ship.
If you're looking for more honest and thoughtful conversation about the environment instead of nonstop yelling, check out our environment playlist. And if you want to watch full interviews on a variety of topics, check out our full episode playlist, all right over here. And to get notified of all future videos, be sure to subscribe and click the notification bell.